I've been listening to the speakers as they start, and they all start by saying, "It's an honor to be with you today." And I'm thinking, 1:30 after lunchtime? I have the duty to do what I want to do is to say, I have been where you are right now after lunch in seminars like this many, many, many times. I've been in your seat, and I know the tendency to just kind of take that nap. I will do my very best. I'll do my very best to keep you awake, okay? That's what I want to say at the beginning of this one. It's going to be tough, I know, but I'm going to do my best. Why do we need to have a ministry? When we get done with this, I'm going to have interaction, hopefully. So that means you have to stay awake, right? Because I may ask you to talk about something. So that's a good reason for you to stay awake. What I want to do at the beginning now is to go and give you a little YouTube of Derek Perrin, I think his name is, to lay the basis of what's important for men. So I'll try to get this going online here. Hopefully it works right. It does.
I'm standing in a museum that used to be a church. In 1887, Pastor Henry and his wife Grace planted this church in a one-room schoolhouse just down the road. And in 1888, they were able to build this building. And they passed on their love for this community because of the gospel to a generation. And things were going really well. But 2 generations after this church was planted, it died. And you can see the pictures behind me of the faithful members of this congregation. And many of them lie in the graveyard behind the church. This church had a man crisis. It was men who made this church come alive, and it's probably men who caused this church to die. In churches, when men stop investing in younger men stop caring. That's probably what happened to this church. And that's definitely what's happening in our churches. Older gentlemen do not know how to finish well. They don't know how to invest. And so middle-aged men don't know how to stay married. They don't know how to stay connected to the hearts of their children. And so younger men don't even want to be men. And so younger men are prolonging their adolescence. And they're doing this residentially. Guys in their 20s and early 30s, a third of them live with their parents. That's a 100% increase in the last 20 years. They're doing it professionally. Men 18 to 42 will change jobs 11 times. They're doing it recreationally. The average age of a video game user is 35 years old. And so when these men finally stop fondling the controller, they fondle themselves. Every second of every day, $3,000 is spent on pornography. Every second. We need better men, which means we need better pastors. We need pastors who are not boys, but are men. Pastors who are not trying to prolong their adolescence, but pastors who are trying to be the men that God has called them to be. They are qualified men in their character. They are called men to serve God's church. They are determined men. They are dependent men. They are tough men. They're able to take a punch. They're able to handle circumstances. They're tender men. They're able to love their wives and love their kids and to teach their church to love their community. Tragically, the last time the gospel was preached from this pulpit to this church was 1957. 3,000 to 4,000 churches this year will close just like this church. Why? Because the story and the glory of the church becomes bigger than the story and glory of God. See, the men and women who planted this church, they actually believe this stuff. They actually believe that Jesus lived a perfect life, that He died a brutal death, and that He rose again, triumphing over sin and death. They believed it. And because they believed it happened, they believed it had implications on their life, that their sin could be forgiven, that they could have a new identity, and that they could be sent on mission with this God who is on mission. But the reality is most Christians are not on mission. A recent poll said that 60% of all Christians felt no obligation whatsoever to share their faith. Now, the temptation for us pastors is to beat the sheep with a stat like that in our sermons. But here's the reality, guys. They're simply imitating and following our example. We need a glimpse of the God who is on mission. My friend Dave was meeting with a consultant who asked him this question. Dave, why do I have a bigger dream for your church and your city than you do? And I don't know about you, but I don't want anyone to have a bigger dream for my church and my city than me. And I don't want to build a museum. I want to be a part of a movement.
Hopefully that set the tone for what we want to talk about. So let's talk about men in ministry and the importance of men. If you look at church attendance, this is a little old, I'm sorry to say that, but if you look at church attendance of men, you see this statistic here, 42% in 1992, 28% in 1996. Now, if you take that scale and make 42% 100%, make that 42% 100%, so the 28% now becomes 66%. That means 1 in 3 men have left the church over time. 1 in 3 men have left the church over time. That's a pretty serious figure to be talking about. So where are we now? If you look at what has happened in the people who profess faith in Christianity, you take the builder generation, that's my parents' generation, the World War II generation, the great World War II generation, which everybody was a Christian, right? It seemed like it. Well, now let's go back at that time. Back in World War II, we have the President of the United States is going to make a prayer for D-Day. On D-Day, he's going to have a prayer. Now, the President of the United States at that time did not go up and find some lesbian female pastor of some church up there to give the prayer. The President himself prayed the prayer. Could that happen today? I mean, Roosevelt himself on radio and the whole nation stopped and prayed. Okay, that generation had their children. That's my generation. Now they're down to 35% profess faith. And you go from that generation to now our kids come along, and there's a tremendous change. If you go from the 35% to the 15%, you go look at Campus Crusade for Christ, for example. I've talked to some people who've gone through that transition, where in my generation, they go to the campus and they give a gospel and they say Moses, and they knew who Moses was. And they talk about the 10 Commandments, and the people knew who 10 Commandments were. And they talk about Jesus Christ, and they knew who Jesus Christ was. They all went to Sunday school, or more or less. Now, you go and talk about Moses and go, who's that? 10 Commandments, what's that? Sin, what's that? Oh, let's first define the word G-O-D. It's not D-O-G, it's G-O-D, okay? We have to go up and define terms as they go up and give the gospel. That's where they're at now. Now, what's going to happen when their children are born? Projected thought, projected thinking is that like 4%. 4% of the next generation will understand what it is to be a Christian, to be a believer. I would suggest to you that if you were a business at this point, you'd be bankrupt. Oh, excuse me. You asked for Governor bailout. Whatever. We're at that point now, obviously. And we're looking at a society today that is attacking Christianity. Instead of having a president that would get on the radio and pray, we have a president that complained about, well, those people are clinging to their God and their guns. Guess what this administration is going after? God, guns. We were warned, folks. We were warned. No problem there. But what we have here is in this presentation I give you with the YouTube, you heard Derek Perrin say, the old men didn't know how to finish well. What's most important for men is the children they have and having them develop to be the mature adults that they should be, right? How many people we have problems today with the men don't finish well, don't teach their children how to become mature adults spiritually, first of all, and then with the family and everything else after that. I told one particular individual, and this guy, fortunately, I don't want to tell you about the whole story, but fortunately he left my church. Yay! Anyway, He has 12 kids. I told him, you have the greatest opportunity to have the greatest blessing of any person I know, to have all your kids around you as you get to be an old man, or you can have the greatest catastrophe of any man I know, to have 12 kids that have rejected you. This man does not know how to finish well, and right now, one by one, his kids are rejecting him. I can't believe what's happening in that family. And it's all their fault, not his fault, all their fault. They don't know how to finish well, and that's what's happening with the generations we see. We don't see them follow through with their spiritual inheritance. So we think about men in our church, the people in our church. If you look at the average 10 men in our church, 9 will have kids leave the church. 8 will not find their job satisfying. Now, I can just stop here. There's more to go. If you've seen my PowerPoint before, there's more to go here. But if I stop right now, I could say just these 2 points. We have character problems. There's already some character problems with men. If you just look at these 2 issues right now, that they're not satisfied with their life and they're passing it on to their kids. Their kids aren't satisfied either, and it's a disruptive situation. There's something wrong here with the men. Let's keep on going. 6 will pay a monthly minimum on the credit cards. 5 had a major problem with pornography. Okay, you got pastors here, okay? Pastors, when you stand up and you're preaching at your pulpit and you look out at your audience, how many of you go, half of those guys are onto pornography? You ever thought about that? I've looked at my congregation. I've even gone and checked a few. That's a sad, sad thing right here to think about that. In the congregations, 4 will get divorced, and how many children are affected by that? Only 1 will have a biblical view. All 10 will struggle with a balance of family and work, and what's the reason? Why? Because we want to have fun. I'm sorry, I'm there too, right? I mean, I like to have fun too, don't you? And the problem is it gets into the family. Then all of a sudden, men don't know how to prioritize time with their life with time with their family. What is really, really the most fun is to see your kids grow up and to be something. That's lots and lots of fun. But we get involved in things so quickly, very, very quickly. And so we don't understand the purpose and meaning of life. And I see very much like, let me start again. What's going on today in our country is very much like what I see in Deuteronomy chapter 8, where Moses warns the people, you're going to go into the land, God's going to bless you, you're going to have more abundance, you're going to have food, you're going to have multiplied livestock, multiplied product, everything, and you're going to forget your God. Haven't we done that? We forgot our God. We got all these things, all our toys, and we forgot our God. I think we got the same thing happening in our country. Well, men are very influential in the fatherless. This goes to the negative side, not with fathers in the home, but the negative side. Fatherless homes, 90% of the runaway children, 85% of the children with behavior problems, 71% of high school dropouts, 75% of children addicted to drugs. I had one particular young lady who was getting into drugs and stuff like that, and I told her a few things about what's going to happen to her. She got so mad at me, she got so mad at me for saying that she determined she's not going to let that happen. Well, that was good. I'm glad she did that. But I was just predicting what was happening based upon these facts here. 63% of teenage suicides. Have you guys ever had a suicide? Some of you have had suicide in your churches, right? I don't know about you, but for me, Grandpa and Grandpa are supposed to die. Okay. Your spouse, or your mom and dad, they're supposed to die ahead of you. That kind of hurts, but then your spouse. Well, one of you got to die first, right? That hurts a lot. Your children are not supposed to die. That really, really, really hurts. But then about 4 or 5 times worse than that is a teenage suicide, in my opinion. I never want to do that again. Never, never. It's so hard to deal with those things. 80% of the rapists. 85% of prison inmates. Let's keep on going through some more statistics here. Men commit 90% of the major crimes. They commit that many rapes? Wow. Rather impressive, isn't it? 95% of the burglaries. 91% of the offenses against the family. comprising 94% of the drunk drivers. If we have Christian values in any of these things where these people are living these things, look how much less crime there would be. There was one town in Guatemala that the town was totally turned over. It's only about 3,000 people, but totally turned over. They had about 5 churches, and the whole town turned to become believers. They shut down the police department. They had one police officer sitting in front of jail. He didn't have anything to do. I mean, that's the way to have it. I mean, it's a very localized situation, but can you imagine how much society changes if we just have people living Christian values? And we've lost that. So what we have normally with Christian values is you control yourself internally. But when you don't have any Christian values, you have to have external controls. What do we have happening right now today? All these laws and all these rules and all these police officers everywhere because people can't control themselves. We can get rid of a lot of police officers, and I'm in the police department work. We get rid of a lot of police officers. We just have more Christian values. Let's go on some more stuff here, more technical stuff. Christians own about the same amount of technology as the general population. I had this one couple in church, and they were rather on the low end of the income level. The lady come up to me and says, "But we got all our toys." Isn't that what we do today? And boy, and some people in society, they really have to have their toys. I mean, the latest stuff that comes out, they got to have it. My nieces came from Brazil this past December. Now that's my wife's side, and that's really grandnieces. But anyway, the thing of it is that Brazilian government knows that people want the latest, hottest stuff. So the Brazilian government and several other governments, they import tax is huge on iPhones. They wanted to buy an iPhone, unlocked iPhone, which is like $700, because in Brazil it's $3,000. They went and bought a set of tennis shoes, $180, easy $1,000. Got to have the latest, hottest stuff. And that's the way things are. Even Christians do that. So let's look here and see what happens here. Born-again adults spend about 7 times more hours each week watching television than they do and participating in spiritual things like Bible reading, prayer, and worship. You know, Bible reading, prayer, and worship is almost boring stuff. But entertainment is fun. How many times have you walked into a room to do, or a living room to do some counseling or some talking to somebody, the TV is on and they never turn the doggone thing off? And you can't even talk to them. They're hooked onto this stuff. Born-again adults spend twice as much money on entertainment as you do donate to the church. Boy, turn that one around and see what would happen, huh? Born-again adults spend much more time surfing the net than they do conversing with God in prayer. Duh, that's an odd one, huh? It's obvious, isn't it? That's what's happening in our society. What born-again Christians believe. Watch this one here. They reject the existence of the Holy Spirit. Believe that Jesus Christ was crucified but not physically raised, only 35%. These are people like maybe in your church. You ever thought about that? 45% deny Satan's existence. 32% believe in moral absolutes. 26% make choices based upon principles in the Bible. 24% make choices based upon what feels good or right. Do you ever see a statistic like this and you say, "Oh, is that my church?" I did. I got these statistics and I go, if this is my church, I'm quitting. I've been doing this for how many years and they believe that? So I gave them a test. You ever done that? It's kind of been fun. I did. I passed out a test. It says, you guys got to take a test because these are the statistics that are out there and I want to see where you're at. So I gave them a test. Even with the high school kids that didn't even know the tests were coming down, I still had 92% positive, 100% right. I gave you that, so you go give your own church a test, see if you pass that test, okay? Even with the high school kids in that one, I felt good about that. Anyway. Scary that this is average, though. Because now, I'm speaking to a select group of people. I'm assuming your churches would pass with 90% or so. Not 92, not as good as mine, but it would pass. It would pass with good results. But the average Christian that says they're a Christian, and I'm not going to doubt that right now. I'm not going to debate that issue. This is what they believe. If that's what they believe, then what are they living on? What standards do they have? Let's go on here. So where are the men? 26 million men attend church. 68 million do not attend church. Why not? Because it's just not relevant. Now that starts talking about what we do in church. What we're doing in church, does that make a man feel like he accomplishes something? I have a problem when I get up and teach in a pulpit. I have a little bit of problem right now. I'm doing it a little bit. Is that I only got you guys for just a little bit of time. I got to get everything I can, possibly down your throats, quickly as possible so you can walk out of here like you got something. And I start speaking too fast, and I have problems that way, and people can't understand me, so I got to slow down. But that's my feeling. I want people to walk out of the church like I have something to live with now. That type of thing. It's relevant. It has purpose. Our biggest national tragedy is men between the ages of 18 to 25. How are we going to make people grow up? So in 1970, when you talk about maturity, in 1970, by the age of 30, we're talking about several significant things. They got their own job, they got their own place to live, they're married, they have their first child. Might be one more thing. I want to think one more thing. But anyway, you got the idea, right? That was 1970. By 2003, those same factors at age 30 was half of what it was in 1970. I mean, we're simple stuff like they're still living at home. They never got married at age 30. You know, most men get going by 21 or 22, and you've got a family, and off they go into life. But by 30, half of them were gone. I mean, there's twice as many in 1970 as there was in 2003. What do we do to get men? I mean, I talked to a father last fall, and he had a son that was 28 years old, still at home, playing with games, not having a job. Guess what my advice was? Kick his butt out of your house. Yeah. And I did find out later on he did that. I mean, kick him out of the house. Get him out of there. I know stories where people got kicked out of the house when they're 18. So what's with 28? You know? No, it wasn't me, by the way. No, it was almost me. I got to admit it was. When I went off to college and I wanted to go home at Thanksgiving, my parents almost wouldn't let me come back home. But that's another story. I'm a nice guy now. I got saved after that, okay? So what are the women saying? Women have a great insight to men. It's amazing what they know about men. Women often feel that they're abandoned emotionally. There's a sense that men are not really listening to them. What's one of the greatest needs a woman has is to listen. What do men normally want to do? We fix it. You got a problem? I'll fix it right now. I don't want to fix it. I want you to listen to me. Just listen sometimes is all they want. But they want to have somebody that's involved with them. A woman wants to be part of the man's life. The man's life is out there someplace, doing things out there. And the woman's life is in here with the house and the family and the husband. And he comes home and he's still out there, and she wants to be part of him. And he doesn't get involved with that. And a woman has a difficulty dealing with these things. Women are desperate for men to provide strong spiritual leadership in the home. One woman said this, I want a rock, somebody that's my leader, my hero. How many women want their hero? And they're still looking for that, even though they're married. Something that men are. They're leaders. If men are not strong leaders in the home, then women will take that back. They will develop their own spiritual development. And a lot of women are leading their home spiritually. Why? It should be the man that leads the home spiritually. Men are in need of accountability. Many men have not built the necessary trust level with their spouse so she can encourage them to share it with other men. So women know they're men. It's interesting. The Bible says, 1 Peter 6 or 7, men, dwell with your wife according to knowledge, right? Learn about your wife. Learn about your woman. You never see God saying to the woman, learn about your man. She does that automatically. Husbands, you are commanded, go learn about your wife. And most men won't do that. Women look at their men. She sees a man that's ducking responsibility. She knows that. And she sees a man that should be taking on responsibility. She sees a man that's got his priorities all messed up. She sees that. She understands that. She sees a man with anger. He needs some help. Do you think the woman, the wife, can go up there and preach to the man and he's going to submit to her and do what's right? No way. So this is where men come in and help other men. That's the only way it's going to happen. Or the man gets struck by lightning someplace and God wakes him up, and that happens once in a while too. But this is where men can help men. Let's go on with some more things that women are saying. Men need help overcoming wounds from dysfunctional relationships with their fathers and mothers. I have one couple, this statement, and it's for both of them, okay? They both came back from a bad background. The husband says, my sole duty is I don't want to be like my dad. The wife says, my whole role in life, I don't want to be like my mom. So we got two people coming in here to a relationship, and they both look at their house or the home, the past family, and they both see problems, big problems. Well, we got that bad background coming in. Like I said there, men don't know how to finish well, so you got a bad family background, and now you got these people married, and they're trying to stay away from repeating the same things. Men are in need of a better understanding of intimacy. Why this is so important to a woman as the ultimate effect upon their relationship. So we see a man with testosterone. Well, testosterone is supposed to make you a leader. Well, it has a little bit of a problem about making you intimate. Intimate. It's very, very difficult. When I teach on family things, I use, it was somebody else's illustration. I forget where it came from. But it was a moose and a butterfly. Men are like moose and women are like butterflies. And I used this illustration a few times, and somebody went out and bought me a carved moose and put a butterfly on it. So I use that as illustration because us men, we go through life and, something happens. Okay, let's go fix it. A wife will have the same thing happen, and it just destroys them. They're much more sensitive. They need that intimacy. They need that sensitivity. And the testosterone in our bodies is to make us drive us to the point that we will be nice to the woman and be kind to her. And that's the drive that's there. But we misunderstand it. And we don't know how to use it. There's a great need for mentoring. We need a training program to help equip mentors and a more effective outreach to put mentoring relationships together. It's very, very difficult. I'll talk more about this later. It takes a lot of time to mentor a man. Lots of time. One person was talking about going into the chaplaincy in the police department. He had a few years to do that. And I suggested not even try it. He had a limited amount of time to do it. It wasn't like he was going to be here the rest of his life. A limited amount of time. How long does it take for a person to get to know a police officer well enough so you can talk to them about spiritual things? Really get down to their heart. Well, I've done this for years and years. I've been doing it since 1981. Before that, I was a police officer in Dallas. But as a chaplain, I've been doing it since 1981. It takes years to get where you can talk to them personally about these type of things. Young men need to be taught what it means to be a man and enter in a passage to manhood that is critical to this next generation. I want to talk about entering into manhood, adulthood. How do we do this to our young men? Do you have a program where you set up a system where you work, a deal where you do this for your young men? You see, young ladies don't need that. Young ladies are, I had one daughter. Fortunately, we had one daughter. I say that because we weren't supposed to have any children at all. And we went 9 years, and all of a sudden, bingo, God surprised me and the doctor and everybody else. Anyway, we had one daughter, and she was a stick. So much of a stick they call her a boy. And one day she became a beautiful, beautiful woman. She knew what she's supposed to be. She's supposed to be a mama. What do guys do? I don't know. I still don't know what I'm supposed to do. Every woman knows what she's going to be. Excuse me, I have to tell a story. I got time for stories? No, I don't have time for stories. I'm going to tell anyway. My daughter was the best daughter. If you're going to have one child and it's going to be a daughter and you're a man, you want this type of daughter. My daughter could hit a golf ball further than any man that I know. I'd like to go out there and play with my daughter because she hit the golf ball, and then we all go catch up to her ball. Literally, that happened anyway. And she was called a boy because she had a baseball hat on, and her hair was short, and she was still a stick, and she hit the ball off the men's tees. And these ladies were down about the 7th holes, and she was hitting off the men's tees, and these ladies were with her. And by the way, we forgot to ask you what your name was. My name is Trisha. And they thought she was a boy. So anyway, very embarrassing. We need to address women who are single moms raising boys without the influence of men. This is difficult, isn't it? Well, you got a single mom, she got some boys. Where are the boys going to learn to be a man? They don't see their dad. He's not there. And there is an opening there for us men to help other ladies raise their men. Okay, a little fun story here. As you see this picture, this is see, how many years ago was this? 3 years ago. That'd make it 2010, wouldn't it? 3 years ago, this is Laura. You see Laura in the white. If you look on the far left-hand side, you see her twin sister, Anna. These two girls were raised. They're one of 10 kids in the family. First of all, I want you to point out how ugly Laura is. Very ugly woman being married there. Her twin sister is just as ugly. I've always wondered, how is it possible for a man to go up there and decide between two girls who are twin sisters who are identical twins? Now, they're not identical totally, but they were like 20 years old before I figured out this is Anna and that's Laura. That's how close they were. I mean, I finally figured out which one's Anna and which one's Laura, but they're vastly different. We were going to go for a trip over to the Seattle area, and my wife and I was going to have those two girls drive the car. So I went to the one of her sisters and says, which one's the better driver, Anna or Laura? Well, they're twins, right? You know. And the sister hum and hawed, and she didn't want to say too much. Well, Anna gets more speeding tickets. So I had the girls out of our house one time. I was going to take them on a motorcycle. I get the lady that's getting married here, and I put her on the motorcycle, and we have an intercom on the motorcycle. And says, well, Laura, how fast do you want to go? Well, you know, I'm in the Lord's hands, and you're driving the motorcycle, so I just have to trust the Lord, whatever you want to do. So we took a very nice, slow ride. I get Anna on the back of the motorcycle. I said, hey, Anna, how fast do you want to go? Well, how fast will I go? So these two girls, we semi-adopted them because their parents moved away to South Carolina. And at age 23, when they were just about finishing college, I think one of them was done with college. At age 23, I took them out to lunch. They jumped me. What is wrong with us? They had not even had one date. Not one person had even asked them out. And you can see how ugly they are, right? Not even one date. What's wrong with us? Well, what would your answer be? I says, well, first of all, you're Christian. You have high standards. I mean, every guy that looks at you knows that they're not going to be able to get sex with you on the first date. They know that, right? You are educated. And you're beautiful. That's a problem. It's not your problem, girls. It's a guy's problem. Do y'all agree? It's a guy's problem. I mean, it's a good thing it's one of the best things in the world. Well, let's go on here. So they go to this wedding, and there are 6 girls who are related to her or her good friends in that wedding party, 6 girls from age 23 to age 29. Since that time, at that time, there was one girl who had a boyfriend of those 6 girls, and that one girl has gotten married. Out of those 6 girls, they're still not married, and now they're all like 30 years old. Beautiful girl. Good thing I'm not single, young, and about 30 years old. I would get any of them. I mean, let's go for it. They're all good looking. And they're all Christians. They're all great. They're all educated. Just wonderful girls. Where's the guys at? What's wrong here? I mean, one girl is 29 at the time, so she's like 33 now. I'm ready to get married. Where's the guys? Got a man problem here. By the way, they're expecting in June, which is kind of exciting. Okay, so the power of men's influence. So God created men to have a great responsibility to be a godly leader, to be influential, family, church, and world. And this is true whether he's a believer or unbeliever, isn't it? The testosterone inside of us, we're supposed to go out there and we're supposed to develop, we're supposed to conquer, we're supposed to get the world together. We're supposed to provide. We're supposed to protect. That's everything we're supposed to do. We're leaders just because of the way God made us. So you look at this power of influence when it comes to the gospel. Okay. So if you take 100 children and you give them the gospel and they become saved, you get the rest of the family, mom and dad, 1.7% of the time. You get 100 mothers saved, you get daddy about 18% of the time. You get the father saved, and you get the whole family. Influence. I saw this happen last summer when it first started. This lady who's had tremendous problems with her family, and I won't go into the details, but she's in the hospital at this point. When I'm telling you the story, she's now in the hospital. And the doctor comes in. She was in the hospital for about 10 days. The doctor comes in one day, and she's a godly woman. And she says, "Doctor, can I pray for you?" And he started to talk, and about 2 minutes later, he just broke down and bawled. "How did you know?" That morning, his wife had just left him and taken the 2 kids. That morning. That first day, that's the only day she asked, "Could I pray for you?" Within the hour, that lady had led that man to Christ. The lady had to go back in the hospital here this is March, so past January. And it was another doctor, another circumstance. And that doctor found out she was in the hospital, came back to the hospital with his wife saved, his 2 kids were saved, and he has also led 2 people in his staff in his doctor's office to Christ, and they're in church, active, saved. That's as much as I kept with the story. 1 person was saved, that man. And see all the other people that are saved behind him. So do we have the way we see God's order. We can see it happening in life. Man should be saved, get the woman saved, the children are saved. That's the way God set it up. That's the way God works. Now, what do we do in the church? We go after the children, don't we? I'm going to say something about Child Evangelism Fellowship. Please be nice now, because our church supports Child Evangelism Fellowship, and I am very much in favor of Child Evangelism Fellowship. So I'm saying this as we're an advocate of Child Evangelism Fellowship. This great program that they got and be able to get into schools is wonderful. But guess what? I'd say at the same time, common sense, right? We're doing it the wrong direction. I'm not trying to put child evangelism down. I'm just saying we're going the wrong direction. We need to have men get involved and be saved first, and then we see big changes. Well, quickly. The primary goal of an effective men's ministry is to strategically help men transfer biblical truth into action by providing the necessary encouragement for them to live a holy life before God for the benefit of their families, friends, churches, and communities. Quickly get through the rest of this stuff here. Men's needs and methods for reaching other men are different than for women or children, right? How do women get things going? I mean, they got women's ministry and they're very active, and let's have a class and we sit down and we'll talk about it. And women do that all the time. They're great. I mean, I have one happening in our church right now. It's fantastic. They talk about it. They love to do that. They just enjoy that a lot. Men get together, talk about it. Maybe. Reservedly. How long does it take for you to finally get to the point where they really will talk to you? Or are they just passively listening? Can I have a volunteer to talk about this? Quiet. Nobody. You do that with women? Hey, ladies, can somebody talk? Woo-hoo! You know? Okay. Spiritually mature men are more effective husbands than fathers. You got that right? That's good? Because one thing that's great about counseling, marriage counseling, is if I can go and I say, I'm going to go straight to the Bible and appeal to the Bible. If both husband and wife are on the same page, we got a solution. If I get one of the other 2 spouses that aren't quite there, and quite often it usually is the man, I'm wasting my time. Years and years ago, I used to do pastoral counseling. I don't do it anymore. Because if I have one of them that's in favor and one of them that's not, I'm wasting my time. I give them a book. It's Love Life by Ed Wheat. Read the book. If you like the book, come back and talk to me. When they read the book, they get their problems all solved. I don't have to talk to them anymore. Spiritually mature men provide godly leadership in the church. Obviously, spiritually mature men disciple and evangelize other men. Right here is where we got to go, right? This is where we got to go, evangelizing other men. You can see the statistics. If we evangelize other men, we'll get the whole families together. This is where it should go. Keys to men mentoring and discipleship. Think this one through for discussion a little bit. Reaching men on two levels. Men's ministry in general, but then there's this one-to-one mentoring, one-to-one, where you actually talk to one other, or maybe two or three others. Very small group. The other thing here, ministries that change the heart toward God, change of behavior, we can do that quickly, but changing the heart, the long term, that's where we got to get. That's what we got to do. And we got to do it by getting mutual trust. How long does it take for men to get together so they finally talk to each other and trust each other? I've had a little experience with that just recently. We have a men's group that meets for prayer. Literally, it was 6 months before we started talking real stuff. It was 6 months, and we met every other week for an hour. 6 months later, somebody broke the ice a little bit, and then somebody else broke the ice. It took a long time before they actually could talk to each other. And the greatest trust is developed in small group situations. Let's go here and finish this up. We need to talk the difference between a process and an event. An event is decisions, process is development. An event motivates, a process matures. An event challenges, process changes. An event is convenient, a process is commitment. An event is for the moment. So we have these get-togethers for a weekend, for a Saturday big men's event. Yippee! Let's go for it. Yeah, let's go for it. What happens? Come back from church next week. Oh, it was a fantastic event. 2 weeks later, yeah, okay. 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Did we go to an event? I mean, that's what happens, doesn't it? You see this big excitement for a little while, and then it wears off as nothing. You don't need events. We need process. That's what Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2 is talking about. Changing the mind, transforming the mind, okay? So some things we have done, for example, a great help for us that really kicked us and got us going was that movie Courageous. Most of you have seen that movie. We went and got the whole series of the weekly discussion things, and that we would play clips of the movie and then discuss that. That helped a lot. There's some things that men can do that we should do, I think, and think about. For example, men like to do things. Men are fixers. So to get men together, and this is an activity to do to get men together. There's some things that are proper here to get men together so they get to know each other, so that we can start to talk, so we can have that mutual confidence. So some events to do, for example, fix-it things. Fix old people's little problems. I mean, you give a man a little problem, like a little leak under the sink, hey, man, I'll go fix it right now for you. I love to help you, lady. I appreciate your appreciation of me that I can fix your little problem. I'll do that in a second. And we got men that love to do that. Fix things at the church. That's always a good thing for the church. I like that part, especially good. We had a class on self-defense. That's a man's thing, Teach ladies how to protect themselves. Nothing wrong with that. It's an event you can do that men like to do. Get it organized. Even men learned a lot of things on that one. Go out and shoot guns. Oh, man, we love to shoot guns. Go out and do things like that. Have men get together with their young people or their wives and go out and shoot guns. Teach gun safety, things like that. I think the way the gun culture is going today, I'm going to put on my church, guns are welcome. This is not a gun-free zone. Something like that. And I hope you should know, if you come to our church, there are several people in our church that have that weapon on their hip, okay? Or hidden someplace. So don't worry about my church. Anyway. How many of you ever, women have a shower for women at weddings, right? Have you ever done one for the guy, for the groom? Now, there's a problem here because the word shower is the wrong word. I know that. But you understand what I'm saying? Have you ever done it for the groom? I'll tell you what, I love to do that. We do. Excuse me, I'm going to hurt some feelings here. Women, us men know how to do a shower better than you ladies ever thought of. We do it good. I'm really serious about this. This is very important as a men's thing, where older men come and put on values onto the younger man. And we prayed over this guy. We gave testimonies talking about what you're going to get involved in. We sang hymns, a cappella, men, at this shower. I hate to use the word shower. We had some of the worstest, this is bad English, baddest rot gut food I ever seen in my life. We had a ball. And the guy got some really cool gifts like I was wishing I got them, I mean, like Home Depot cards and tools and band stuff, It was a great time. And I really encourage you men to think about that. If you got a young man coming up and he's going to, his bride goes off and has a shower, well, do one for him. I'm very, very, very serious. If you do it right, you're telling this man there's some values here that you're going to be picking up as a man that now we're passing on to you. I'm very serious about that. Okay, another little thing to do for men. How about a passageway into adulthood for a 13-year-old boy? What do we do for men to say, now you're a man? You have men responsibility. We don't do that. Maybe the military, so. I mean, as a farm boy, I never had that problem. I'm sorry to say that. My dad ended up, or he couldn't go work. I was 13 years old. I did the farming, I did the cultivating, I did the water churning, I did the cattle. 13 years old. I had no problem. I never thought about it. I just did it. You're the man. You go do it. Okay. How many 13-year-olds would do that today? So what did we do to help 13-year-olds or something like that to get this idea? You're adult. They have bar mitzvah. Same thing, right? So we did this. We've done this. It's a tremendous time. It's tremendous time. This particular one I'm thinking about, the most recent one, the grandfather came. A couple of neighbors that were Christians came. We had the Sunday school teacher come. And they just talked to the young man about what you're getting into as a 13-year-old. I mean, the grandfather was just wonderful. How he gave a testimony about his own life and then passing it on to his grandson. Now, the son, 13 years old, right? Does this have any effect on him at all? Okay, I want to get you the story here as it goes on. So now, about 6 months later, father and son are out there they had to go pull some weeds out of his property. And the son's out there helping dad doing this. And the son, Dad, I just figured out, I've only got about 5 more years of my life, and I got to work the rest of my life. Getting it, huh? Yeah. He's getting it. Is this something that you can do for your church? Help your young men to figure out they're going to be adults, that they're going to be moving into leadership positions. Another thing we've done in church is I've had a theology class with speakers, and to get them to be speakers. Right now, it's obvious that I'm away from the church. I turned it over to a couple men in the church, and they teach the classes. They're taking on the leadership. I did that many years ago, and I'm going to probably do it again. So that I just put out an email. Hey, I'm going to be gone on a certain date. Who's going to take the place? First one, first serve. I get guys come in. I want to teach. So another book that I would suggest you might consider looking into, Hazards of Being a Man by Jeffrey Miller. Hazards of Being a Man by Jeffrey Miller. In that, you will have to discuss with your men deflecting responsibility, manipulation, misplaced priorities, lust, individualism, insensitivity, absence, partial obedience, unsolved anger, discontent, unteachability, unchecked motives. Whew. I don't like talking about any of those things. Though we get men talking about these things and they start being honest about it. Now, how do you do this as a pastor? I'll finish this off now. How do you do this as a pastor? It ain't easy. And I don't have any quick answers. Because I don't want to be the person who is the man leader. I want men in the church to be the leader. Now, maybe I'm wrong there, but I don't want to be the guy that's always running things because people show up just because the pastor's doing it. Okay, we show up. No, I want you guys to do it because you want to do it. Okay, so how are you going to get men to come out there and get the thing going? Well, that takes a lot of time. I probably started this idea at least a year, maybe 18 months before something started to click. And we got to have a men's ministry. We got to have something going here. And I would talk to individual men, and it never went anywhere too far. And then we talked some more, and finally the idea clicked. That's what I did. It took a long, long time to encourage and to organize and to pick on some people to push the idea, to promote it, so that finally men picked up the idea on their own and they ran with it, and that's good. And then you got to rejuvenate it once in a while. Right now, I got to be honest with you. Robbie introduced me as a great men's ministry guy. Well, I'll tell you right now, ours is hurting a little bit, and we got some things planned to kind of pick it back up and go again. You just got to keep it going. So with that, I'll quit and open for discussion. If you want to discuss. I don't have any time, right? I ended up.
So you got 15 minutes.
Oh, 15. I didn't mean to let that much time.
You're actually on time. Somebody had a joke about why do you keep calling those boys men?
Boys, men. Which boys?
They never grew up.
Oh, I know. That's the problem, isn't it? That's what we really have. And the guys that are 30 years old that don't marry these beautiful girls, they're still boys, and they're still playing with their little machines, and they're still not getting what men's all about. It's really sad. No, not having that problem, I don't understand it, but I see it happening.
I've had a prison ministry for over 10 years, and I know a friend of mine who's a pastor and been in the Huntsville system of security for 25. And he said, David, almost every one of these men that I've talked to in the prison system have one thing in common. He said they all hate their fathers. And when I go into the jails, when I do get a chance, because most of them are 18 to 25, and when I talk to some of the young men, I said, who gave you the gospel? Because they're saved. And there's usually, I never once heard the father. It was either the mother or the grandmother. And that's the one who's coming up to see him in the prison. So this is a sad testimony on Deuteronomy 6. The family, and we're not passing the word down to the kids, and the fathers aren't doing it. And they're hating their fathers for a reason. So that's just kind of a comment. And I was going to ask a question. Just there's one particular, where's Rick King? There he is. Yeah, he goes into the jails too. We got about 5 of us that go in. And we get different pods each time and different guys, but they've got me in one now that has re-entry guys that they try to work with when they get on the outside. And there's about 40 guys in there. And they now assign me to that group for Bible teaching. But just any thoughts or encouragement or tracks you would recommend now that I got these guys for maybe 6 months? I'm thinking about just taking your PowerPoint in, because now they gave me PowerPoint this last week. Mm-hmm. That's pretty unheard of in there. But I could show them that just to encourage them is, look, you're men. And these guys all have baby mamas. I mean, some of them have 3 or 4 women that they have children with, and it's cool. That's just the way they think. But they're just as human as we are. They just need someone to teach them. And it's almost like you feel like, can I do anything now at this point where they're so far gone, but you don't want to give up? But any suggestions on, if I get them for 6 months, some things to hammer along with the Bible study, which I think is what's going to correct their heart, but just a focus for them.
I don't have any pat answers. That Courageous movie and that book, those are 2 good sources to work with. There's no secret answer, I think, what you got there. And by the way, you said that they hate their father. The guy that, I want to say this, that guy I mentioned is, I don't want to be like my dad. And the girl said, I don't want to be like my mom. The dad, his father was a Dallas Seminary guy.
Seems to me like part of what we're dealing with here that seems a little overwhelming is you're dealing with this systemic problem, too, of negative volition to the truth. Mm-hmm. So how does that factor in? We're dealing with a lot of different causes for this, the breakdown of the family, breakdown of the role distinctions between men and women. where they're just a complete rejection of the biblical mandate for the role of men, the role of women. You've got corruption in both sides, men who don't want to be men, women who don't want to be women for whatever reason, and so it's not just one thing or another. There's no, like you say, no pat answer. You can teach the word, but what's the role in all of this of teaching the word in the way that you're thinking through this?
Getting men so they. Okay, I'm going to answer something. It may not be what you're after there. What I see is the two biggest issues and problems in our society is the education system and the media system. Media. Those two things. TV, I'm saying generally TV, but obviously movies and everything else. And the education. Between the two of them, we're stuck. We are in big doo-doo. So what do you do to overcome that? Well, it gets back to being men. Men who say, I'm going to be involved in my kid's life on a spiritual level. Even if they go to a public school system, I'm going to be involved with them in their lives so that they don't have all that influence hit them that hard. They still get back to men.
Right. But where I'm driving on this is we agree, and you haven't really hit this that hard, but I know where you are. We agree that the only change agent is the Word of God.
Yeah.
So how does that fit within what you're talking about? We understand the problem. We understand the negative volition. We understand the sociological aspects that are all part of the systemic problem. But what are ways to take the Word of God and make that the effective change agent? Because that's the only thing that's going to reverse any of these problems.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of answers. You get people saved. And then they work from there. You got, oops.
Where are we going?
I had just a suggestion about the name for showers for the men.
Yeah, give it to him.
We have a men's get-together once a month in our church. And the monthly cycle seems to get people to come. If it's monthly, I don't know why. I think some of you in the room think you know why. Anyway, but we call it a men's huddle because that's a football term. Okay, so I propose for your shower, call it a pile-on.
Pile-on.
We'll pile on the guy and set him up with the advice and stuff. I also wanted to say that my men's huddles, we've been doing them for 5 or 4 years, and when I introduced the other men to prepare in advance to share how they became believers, to talk about their experiences when they stopped coming as a passive thing only and thought they were going to have responsibility in communicating, because what we're trying to do is train them to father their families, and that's teaching. Mm-hmm. So when I let them start teaching, the interest really increased for everybody.
And thank you for bringing this up. One thing I in my notes I had and I forgot to bring out is in the groups that get together that one of the key issues, and I'm glad you brought it up, one of the key things is for men to work with other men in evangelizing another man, and that you pray for them. And I got this friend at work, and he's 2 doors down in the office, and we talked about Christ, and I need prayer for him, so we pray for that guy. Then later follow up to see what's happening, and even to the point of, well, let's go have lunch together with your friend, and encourage evangelism. And that I'm glad you brought it, because that was one of my key points I wanted to push on the issue of getting men working with men, is to pray for other men as they evangelize and even work together to get a couple of Christian men to that man. Thank you.
Other questions?
Just so I can clarify, you talk a lot about the difference between an event and a process, but your illustrations were still kind of driven around events, the showers and things like that. Mm-hmm. But are you talking about the intent or the focus that changes it from being just about an event to a process, or are you saying that there's something then that grows out of that? Could you kind of explain what you meant by that?
I bring up events because most often men are attracted to events. So you get the event and use that to go to the process. That's what I was bringing up. And I gave you some other ideas of things that we've done that are kind of cool events as a men's ministry that's already working. Some of the things. Yeah, men's pile on. That's a good. I like that one.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Don't have a question really, but since this is about men's ministry, it's kind of crazy for me to say something, but I will. I teach single women, and most of the problems that I face in that ministry is because of the fatherless home. These women, that's why it's okay for 3 baby mamas to be at the prison, and they think it's okay because the validation and the affirmation that they need from their fathers, they didn't get. And they received a lot of rejection. And so what they try to do is get this from a man. Your husband, any man. And so what I believe we have to do is teach them the value of being a woman. And a woman that's created in the image of God. Not only that, but teach them the value of that man that's created in the image of God as well. And when we teach from those two perspectives, then we have the individual see that it's more than just an event. It's more than just a process. It's walking out the image of God in my life every day.
I'm glad you brought up. I want to tell a little story about parenting. I only had a daughter, okay? So this daughter's growing up, and I don't know about women. Come on, I'm a man, okay, you know. And one guy said to me, he talked about how his daughter, and this daughter, much, much more than mine, she was a stick one day. 6 months later, she was a vivacious. Wow. And she started chasing guys. And the guy and the father said, "Uh-oh, I got a problem here." So he started dating her and hugging her, and he told me about that. Now, I have to go to my wife to get the affirmation here, but about how important is it for a man, the father, to hug the daughter? Oh, it's really important. I don't know that. So my daughter is, and she's about 13 by that time, and I got to start hugging my daughter. Well, she had just had a little change in her body, and all of a sudden those feelings that were used to be fun with Daddy, now they got these strange feelings behind them. She didn't know what to do with them, and she ran away from me. And I chased her into her bedroom, and I chased her back into her walk-in closet. I'm going to get a hug from you. So that was the first night. Then the next night it was to the door of the walk-in closet. And the next night it was into the bedroom. And the next night it was to the bedroom door. And finally she goes, "Okay, if you got to hug me, okay." And then finally the hugs were all common and good. And that totally just set her up so that she got the fuzzies from me. Not from some guy, okay? And I got the payback. She's in college, and she's on the 6th floor of her dorm, and I parked across from the soccer field. She waved, and she ran down, came up the biggest hug in the world. It's just the payoff was there. But excuse me. Wasn't supposed to do that, was I?
Yes, you were.
Anyway.
By the way, thank you for that. The presentation was great. You were talking about the need to teach young men how to be accountable and responsible and leaders and those kinds of things. I've also seen an issue where men don't understand that, and by the way, I hate this phrase. They think that gentleness is showing their feminine side. This is what our culture is putting on people. They don't understand that tenderness and gentleness is a manly quality, not a feminine quality. A man can be that way and still be very much a man. In fact, a complete man is loving and tender and gentle. Now, have you found that to be a problem also in terms of men? Because then when they get into a marriage, they don't know how to be tender and gentle, and all they know how to do is lord it over someone. So is that also a problem that you've seen?
What you said there is true because it's biblically true the way God made us.
Right.
But how do you tell that to an unbeliever or a person that's a carnal believer?
Right.
It's very hard. Yeah.
So have you encountered those kinds of problems too?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Bruce. Well, thanks a lot for that presentation.
Thank you.
And we're doing well on our time. That was very good. Gives a lot of ideas. Okay, we'll take a 30-minute break. We'll be back here at 3:15 for our last session this afternoon, and that will be with Brian Holt. And so 30 minutes, quick break. We'll be back.